Now, to give insight into this promising report is Professor Uche Uwaleke, Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies, Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Thank you for joining NTA News, sir.
Thank you so much, Najatu.
Now, the latest inflation figures show it's easing off in regards to a year-on-year basis, and it seems this is the first time in many months. Can you take us through the numbers and what they mean for the country?
Yeah, Najatu, well, it's cheering news. As you rightly pointed out, it's the first time in 19 months since December 2022, when inflation rate stood at 21.3%. So it would appear as though a turning point has been reached, and that's largely on the back of the harvest season. And I also think it's also on the back of even some of the measures the government some of the measures they have taken. So I see a situation in which we begin to even experience disinflation. Disinflation is a situation in which, yes, prices are rising, but are rising at a slower pace. So for the rest of the year, we may experience disinflation, not only on the back of the harvest season, but also on the back of the measures I talked about earlier, notably the waiver of import taxes on pharmaceuticals, the waiver again of duty on essential food items such as rice, maize, and wheat, and of course the rollout of the CNG buses that we're expecting will happen any moment.
Let me cut in there.
So I think all of that will help to moderate inflation in the months ahead.
Let me cut in there. I mean, you did mention the harvest, and of course the food component remains a significant pressure point, accounting for 17.3% of the total inflation rate. Now, I know you've talked a little bit, you've introduced something. What, in your view, needs to be done to ease the pressure, particularly considering like you said, the latest waiver on food imports and some commodities by the FG?
Yeah, so even at 33.4%, there's no doubt that inflation, headline inflation is elevated, is very high. If you compare that with what the central bank is targeting for the year, that's 21.4%. So it's still a far cry. And what do we need to do? It's very simple. It's to look at the MBS report and make use of it. And what's that report saying? That report is saying that out of the 33.4, food and non-alcoholic beverages account for 17.3%. That's over 50%. Okay. Now, if you take the first 4 divisions of the MBS 12 divisions, food, the first one 17.3, you're looking at electricity and fuel about 5.59, and then you take clothing and transport in that order, you have about 27%, about 28%. So if we really want to get to single-digit inflation, all right, in the next maybe before the end of next year, we need to tackle these major drivers of inflation in Nigeria, and principally food. Okay, and that's why I think the central bank also has a role to play. Yes, why the central bank worries about money supply, for example, is important that the MBS data is used as evidence to tackle inflation in Nigeria. And what does that mean? On the part of this monetary authority, it also means that the central bank can support, the needed growth in agriculture through, targeted interventions. They don't have to do it directly. They can, choose to do that through the development finance institutions. But what is important is that both the fiscal and monetary recognize the key drivers of inflation, and they are tackling that, tackling the drivers, together.
So I was going to ask that question, but you've already answered it. Recognize the key drivers of inflation and tackle them. I've been speaking with the Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies at Nasarawa State University, Professor Uche Uwaleke. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.